I don't remember the year 1967 by the calendar. I remember it by the taste of red dust in my throat and the ceaseless thunder in the sky. I remember it as the year we went deep into the jungles of Vietnam, into a fight they called Operation Kingfisher. It was more than a battle, it was a descent. A brutal, relentless clash between my brothers in the United States Marine Corps and an enemy we came to know as ghosts, the North Vietnamese Army. It was a fight for a patch of muddy ground, a fight for each other, a fight that carved a mark into my soul that time will never erase. The war, you see, was never just about the battles you read about in the history books. It was about the men. It was about us, the Marines who breathed the hell of Con Thien. We faced more than just the NVA, we faced the sky itself, which rained down artillery day and night. We faced the jungle, an unforgiving green maze that hid deadly ambushes and unseen terrors. Many of us never made it home. To all my brothers, the veterans who walked that ground, we honor you. Your bravery was a light in the darkest of places, and it will never be forgotten. If you understand what history truly is, not just dates and names, but blood and fear and sacrifice, then hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us keep these stories alive, to ensure that what we did, what we endured, lives on. Stay with me, and I'll take you back to one of the bloodiest chapters of the Vietnam War. This is Operation Kingfisher, seen through my eyes. This is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the brutal, undeniable reality of war. Let's begin. To understand Kingfisher, you first have to understand the ground we bled on. The demilitarized zone, the DMZ. It was meant to be a buffer, a place of peace. In reality, it was the most dangerous place in the world. The North Vietnamese Army used it as a highway, a staging ground to launch their attacks south. Our job, as Marines of the USMC, was to be the wall they broke against. At the heart of this blood-soaked land stood Con Thien, a small but heavily fortified outpost that became my world. It was supposed to be our eyes and ears, an early warning base to stop the NVA push. But it became a nightmare. We didn't call it Con Thien. We called it the meat grinder, because you could feel its teeth chewing on you day and night. The ground shuddered constantly from the impact of their artillery, mortars, and rockets. You lived, ate, and slept to the rhythm of explosions. Our strategy was brutally simple on paper. Find them, engage them, destroy them. We pushed out on search and destroy missions deep into their territory, but it was a fool's errand. The NV knew the jungle like the back of their hand. They wove a tapestry of booby traps, ambushes, and hidden bunkers. They were masters at luring us into the perfect trap. By mid-1967, our commanders, the men looking at the maps, could see it. The NVA was gathering its strength, massing thousands of troops for a storm they meant to unleash on the DMZ. In response, we got our orders, Operation Kingfisher, a large-scale offensive designed to hit them hard, to break their fist before they could swing it. What came next was not a battle, it was a butchering. We had our orders, the NVA had their plan. And in the green hell of Vietnam, a deadly showdown was about to begin. By mid-1967, you could feel it in the air, a tension that made the jungle humidity feel even heavier. The NVA were coming, thousands of them pouring down toward the DMZ, bringing heavy weapons and artillery. Intelligence reports confirmed what we already knew in our guts. They were planning something big, something that could shatter our bases and tear a hole deep into the south. We couldn't just sit in our bunkers and wait for the storm to break. We had to become the storm. That's when new orders for Operation Kingfisher came down. The goal was simple and savage: engage and destroy the enemy before they could attack. It was planned as a massive sweep, a dragnet cast across the jungles around Con Thien. I was with the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, the 2 quarters. Along with other units, our job was to march into NVA country, hunt down their forces, and wipe them out. But this was no simple mission. We knew the enemy, the PAVN 3 to 4B Division, had been preparing for months. They had turned the jungle into a fortress, digging tunnels, building bunkers, and seeding their earth with deadly traps. We knew the risks. Every hedgerow, every tree line, was a potential ambush. Their artillery, hidden just across the DMZ where we couldn't follow, could reach out and touch us at any moment. And we knew, most of all, that these men we were hunting would fight to the last. Still, we pressed forward. We were Marines, battle-hardened, trained for this very moment, and ready for whatever hell they had waiting. What we didn't know was that they were waiting for us. They had a plan, a welcome party that would lead to some of the most brutal fighting of the war. The trap was set. The first shots of Operation Kingfisher were about to ring out, before the sun had a chance to burn off the morning fog on September 13, 1967, or came to Con Thien. Under the deepest cover of darkness, a full company of their soldiers, men from the 812th Regiment, moved like phantoms toward the northeastern perimeter of our stronghold. Their mission was clear: break through our wire, overrun the base, and kill every last one of us. But we were ready. For weeks, the tension had been a coiled spring. We knew they were close. As the first waves of NVA hit the wire, our world erupted. A solid wall of machine gun fire roared to life. M16s cracked, and our mortars coughed, dropping shells that turned the darkness into a chaotic strobe of light and death. The battle devolved into a primal struggle as we fought off wave after wave of their infantry. Then came the thunder. Our artillery support, the big howitzers from the 12th Marines at the nearby fire bases, unleashed hell. The sound was a physical thing. A crushing weight that ripped through the jungle, sending dirt, shrapnel, and bodies into the air. The enemy, caught in that storm of steel, had no choice. They broke, melting back into the darkness that had birthed them. The attack had failed. They retreated, leaving their dead and wounded scattered across the torn earth. But we knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The attack on Con Thien was a bloody greeting card, a warning that a much larger battle was here. We had survived the night, but Operation Kingfisher was about to become one of the deadliest fights of the war. Just over a week after they tried to break down our door, we decided to kick in theirs. On September 21st, my battalion, the 2 Quarters, launched a sweep south of the DMZ, east of Con Thien. The goal was to flush them out, to hunt the hunters in their own backyard. 3 of our companies E, F, and G pushed forward, moving through a landscape of thick, tangled hedgerows. It was perfect terrain for an ambush, and that's exactly what they had waiting for us. Suddenly, the world exploded. Machine guns opened up from all sides, a chorus of death from unseen positions. Mortars and RPGs rained down, turning the air thick with smoke and shrapnel. The NVA had sprung a perfect trap, a deadly pinwheel ambush that had us pinned down, caught in a crossfire of bullets. The fight became a desperate scramble for life. We hugged the mud, returning fire at ghosts in the trees. The enemy was everywhere. Snipers took down squad leaders with chilling precision. Explosions shattered the trees around us, turning them into wooden spears. Despite the chaos, we fought back with everything we had. We screamed for close air support, and the jets came screaming in, dropping bombs so close we could feel the heat wash over us. Helicopter gunships, our angels of wrath, unleashed torrents of rockets and machine gun fire. The whole battlefield was on fire. By nightfall, we managed to break free and pull back, but the cost was sickening. 16 of my brothers were dead. 118 of us were wounded. We counted 39 of their dead. But we knew their real losses were far greater. The worst part, the part that haunts my nights more than any ghost, was leaving 15 of our brothers behind, We had no choice. To stay was to die, but to leave them there, in enemy hands, it was a wound that never healed. A debt we swore we'd come back to pay. It took weeks before we could return for them. That battle was a harsh lesson. The NVA weren't just hiding. They were waiting, planning, and striking with a deadly, patient precision. And the worst was still to come. The night of October 14, 1967, started like any other. My company was stationed near the washout bridge, a critical link between Con Thien and another position, C2. As we settled in, listening to the jungle's symphony of insects and dampness, the North Vietnamese Army was preparing a different kind of music. At exactly 1:25 a.m., the silence was annihilated. A massive artillery barrage, heavier than anything I'd ever experienced, came crashing down. The night sky tore open with explosions that threw dirt, debris, and shrapnel in every direction. Their heavy guns, nestled safely across the DMZ, rained fire on us for nearly an hour, a relentless hammer meant to soften us up for the assault. Under the cover of that deafening bombardment, hundreds of their soldiers crept forward. At 2:30 a.m., they hit us. A full-scale assault slammed into the flank of Company G with terrifying force. RPGs tore through our machine gun nests. Their sappers, elite commandos armed with explosives, breached the perimeter. In the swirling chaos, Company G's command post was overrun. In moments, their company commander, platoon leaders, and forward observer were all killed. The unit was decapitated. Leaderless in the heart of the storm, it became a fight of inches, and two-hand combat erupted in the trenches, a brutal dance of bayonets, knives, and rifle butts. But we are Marines. We do not break. Company F rushed into the breach, reinforcing the battered line. And then we heard it, a sound from the heavens, the low, guttural drone of an AC-47. Spooky. We'd never heard a more beautiful sound. A dragon in the dark, spitting thousands of rounds a minute, a river of fire that tore into their ranks and gave us the breath we needed to live. The tide slowly began to turn. By 4:30 a.m., they were forced to retreat. The ground was littered with bodies, ours and theirs. We had held, but the cost was devastating. 21 of my brothers were killed, 23 more were wounded. We found 24 of their dead. But we knew their true losses were far higher. That attack proved how far they were willing to go, attacking in human waves, absorbing catastrophic casualties, and still coming. But it also proved our grit. We held the line, and still, Kingfisher was not over. By late October, Operation Kingfisher was grinding toward its final, bloody phase. We had fought off their assaults, but the enemy was still out there, a shadow in the jungle, waiting. On October 25th, my battalion, the 2 Quarters, launched one last sweep. We pushed north from Con Thien along a road they called Route 561, heading toward the DMZ. The brush was so thick you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. Perfect ambush country. But for most of the day, there was only an eerie silence. Then, as night fell, the sky ignited. NVA artillery and rockets rained down, pounding our positions for hours. The barrage was merciless. Our battalion executive officer was killed. Even our commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel James Hammond, was hit. Despite the chaos, we held our ground. On October 26th, we continued the advance, pushing deeper. As we moved, their mortar and small arms fire erupted from the jungle. Choppers swooped in to evacuate the wounded, but the enemy was ready. An NVA machine gunner stitched a line of fire across a UH-34 transport chopper, and it went down hard, killing the pilot and door gunner. A second helicopter was hit, crash landing nearby. Realizing this was more than a probe, our new commander, Lieutenant Colonel John Studd, called for reinforcements. Company F was ordered up, along with 2 companies from the 3rd Battalion. 3rd Marines, The night of October 26th blurred into the 27th in a constant state of battle. The NVA probed our lines, launching ground attacks under the cover of their mortars. We fought back with everything we had: machine guns, grenades, and the terrifying reassurance of close air support. We pushed back every assault. By 2 a.m. on the 27th, they finally withdrew. At first light, we found 19 of their dead scattered around our perimeter. We had lost 8 men with 45 wounded in that 2-day fight, but we had held the line. That was the last major battle of Operation Kingfisher. The fighting had been brutal, costly, and relentless. But we had stood our ground. Just days later, on October 31st, 1967, they officially called it over. But the war wasn't. After 3 months of hell, Operation Kingfisher officially ended on Halloween 1967. They told us we had prevented a major NVA offensive south of the DMZ. They gave us numbers, cold facts to quantify the cost. Over 1,100 of them confirmed dead, with many more likely gone. We had pushed them back, but we had not destroyed them. From our perspective, the human perspective, the cost was staggering. 340 of us, 340 U.S. Marines, lost their lives. 1,461 were wounded. Some died in the fury of a firefight. Others were taken by the random cruelty of an artillery shell. Some, like my brothers on September 21st, were left behind on the battlefield. Their bodies only recovered weeks later. The scars of Kingfisher would remain with us forever. Strategically, nothing changed. Before Kingfisher's ink was even dry on the reports, we transitioned into Operation Kentucky, another search and destroy mission in the exact same area. The NVA still owned the northern jungles, and we would have to keep fighting for every inch of that cursed ground. For us, the men who fought there, Kingfisher was a crucible. It tested our courage, our resilience, our will to live. We fought against impossible odds, never backing down. Today, I remember our bravery. I remember the faces of the fallen. I remember our sacrifice. The battle may have ended, but the story of what we did in Operation Kingfisher must never be forgotten. We, the men of the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force, the battalions of the 3rd Marine Division, my own two quarters, the 3/3 who reinforced us, the 2 ninths and 3 ninths, the 3/26ths, we held that line. We faced their hardened 3-4B Division, their sappers, their relentless artillery, and we did not break. We relied on the shaking earth beneath the treads of M48 tanks from the 3rd Tank Battalion, the roar of the M50 Ontos with its recoilless rifles, the constant thunder of the 12th Marines artillery, and the brave chopper crews who flew into hell to pull us out. The enemy was smart. They used the jungle, the tunnels, the night. They lured us into kill zones and rushed us in close quarters where our air support couldn't help. We fought in thick mud, under a rain of over 1,000 shells a day, exhausted and pushed to our limits. The war became a grim tally of bodies, a battle of attrition where victory was measured in body counts, not ground taken. The siege of Con Thien became a symbol of our toughness, but it also showed the limits of our strategy. Some say it was all a distraction, a plan by Hanoi to draw our strength before the Tet Offensive that was just months away. For those of us who fought it, Kingfisher was a lifetime lived in 3 months. We faced overwhelming odds, relentless ambushes, and the constant rain of steel. The enemy was fierce, the terrain was a living nightmare, and the cost was devastating by the time it was over. Over 340 of my brothers were gone, and nearly 1,500 were wounded. The war was far from over. Kingfisher showed the world the courage and resilience of the Marines who held the line at Con Thien. Our determination stopped them, but at a terrible price. It was a battle of survival, proving that victory in Vietnam was never about firepower. It was about the men on the ground, fighting for the man next to them. To all the veterans of Operation Kingfisher and the Vietnam War, your bravery will never be forgotten. If you found this story powerful, please like and subscribe to help us share more stories of heroism and sacrifice. History must never be forgotten. Thank you for watching.